Good afternoon. Today we shall be discussing the Restoration playwright William Congreve, whose play The Way of the World is a part of our curriculum. William Congreve is usually considered as one of the foremost writers of comedy of manners, especially because of his ability to examine social conventions of love and marriage with wit and subtlety, and he is hailed as one of the masters of restoration comedy. His brilliant depictions of human behavior are concentrated in the skillful banter of characters in such plays as Love for Love, The Mourning Bride, and The Way of the World. Still performed today, Congreve's dramas have come to represent the standard against which all the other comedies of the Restoration period are measured and assessed. William Congreve was born into an old family of wealth in Bardsey, West Yorkshire, England. After his father received a lieutenant's commission, the family moved to Ireland, where Congreve was educated, along with friend and future satirist Jonathan Swift. His curriculum focusing on theology as well as Greek and Latin classics. Congreve, while in Ireland, often visited Dublin theatres and was exposed to the most celebrated dramas of the time, including Ben Jonson's Volpone and Thomas Durfee's The Boarding House, before these kinds of performances were banned during the rule of James II. A reader of dramatic theory, Congreve was most likely more familiar with the theatre than most young men of his era by the time he moved to London around 1689. Congreve was born at a time in England when England had only recently recovered from a violent civil war, during which the ruling English monarchy was removed from power. In its place, a Commonwealth, led by Puritan military commander Oliver Cromwell, was created. Under Cromwell's strict rule, theatres throughout England were closed down due to their alleged debasement of moral values. When the monarchy was finally restored to power in 1660 under the rule of Charles II, and hence the term restoration, theatres were once again opened, and the exuberant feelings of the day made their way into the comedies, which became popular at that time. Accordingly, the late 17th and early 18th century are often referred to as the golden age of comedy and satire. In 1691, Congreve entered the Middle Temple in London to study law. However, the literary community in London proved to be more appealing to him. With the novel Incognita, or Love and Duty Reconciled, he established himself as a gifted writer of pointed, intelligent wit, and soon became Dryden's friend, legal adviser, and also a literary protege of sorts. With his legal expertise, Congreve helped Dryden to negotiate agreements with publishers. Congreve's educational background helped him make a number of important contributions as a translator to Dryden's editions of classical authors. In addition to Congreve's gift for translation, Dryden recognized the younger writer's ear for the nuances of his own language and predicted that Congreve would be a great literary success one day. Congreve's first real success came in 1693 with the drama The Old Bachelor. Like most of the plays produced during this period, The Old Bachelor was written with specific actors in mind. Most biographers believe that Congreve created the role of Araminta, the virtuous and witty ingenue, for actress Anne Bracegirdle, the object of his lifelong and sadly unrequited affection. Despite glowing endorsements from such notable writers as Dryden and Swift, the play The Double Dealer was met with much less enthusiasm and success than its predecessor. However, the overwhelming success of Congreve's next drama, Love for Love, revived his popularity and earned him a full share in a new acting company under William III's protection. Traveling with dramatist Thomas Southern in the next year, Congreve visited Ireland where he received a Master of Arts degree from Trinity College, Dublin, and was briefly reunited with his parents. The author of several successful tragedies, Southern may have encouraged Congreve to try his hand at what most critics of the time considered a higher dramatic form, that is, writing of tragedies. Ignoring jeers from friends and fellow writers who were certain he would fail to write successful tragedies, Congreve wrote The Mourning Bride, perhaps his only tragedy, in 1697. Though the tragedy received praise both for its morality and literary merit. However, Congreve was unprepared at that point in time for clergyman Jeremy Collier's fierce attack on the English stage, which was titled A Short View of the Immorality and Profaneness of the English Stage, published in 1698. Collier specifically picked up Congreve's work as shamelessly immoral, prompting Congreve to refute those claims in amendments to Collier's False and Imperfect Citations, 1698, which asserts that all well-crafted art is essentially and innately moral. While Congreve's rebuttal was witty and cogent, his emotionally charged approach against Collier's self-righteous and social standing provoked further arguments. Tired of these exchanges, Congreve concentrated on writing his last comedy, and in fact his most successful one, The Way of the World, a drama that enjoyed significant success during his time. Congreve's theatre was inspired by such extraordinary thinkers as Plato, Aesop, Cervantes, and Shakespeare, and his career as an author of Restoration comedy was influenced by the satirical plays of Francis Beaumont, John Fletcher, and Ben Jonson. In addition, the French playwright Molière provided Restoration dramatists, including Congreve, with models for comic relief through dialogue, along with ideas for many themes and plots. Perhaps what had the most impact on Congreve's writing was the Restoration Society itself, that rigid, artificial, refined world of 18th century England. For the most part, Congreve's work was well received by his contemporaries, the condemnation from Jeremy Collier notwithstanding. Now we come to the next important part of our understanding of William Congreve, and that deals specifically with comedy of manners. Now, a comedy of manners is a witty form of dramatic comedy that satirizes the manners and pretentiousness of society. In calling attention to ridiculous schemes and frivolous conversation, this literary form attacks the superficiality and materialism by which people judge others. By presenting the question of whether characters meet certain social standards that are often morally inconsequential, the comedy of manners reveals the conflict between self-interested motives and refined behaviors. Aware of the shallowness of decorum, the protagonist manipulates situations to his own advantage because aristocratic audiences were not interested in didactic lessons being aimed directly at them. The purpose of the comedy of manners was essentially to entertain. As do most of the comedy of manners dramas, The Way of the World the play that we are dealing with specifically, consists of comic material revolving around intimate relationships and farcical situations. For instance, marriage occurs for the sake of convenience in the play. Characters brazenly carry on affairs, jealousy is commonplace, gallantry is feigned, and women are falsely demure. In this play, Congreve's message is clear. The way of the world may be humorous, but it is not kind. Like all romantic comedies, the way of the world has a happy ending. However, the avenue to a joyful resolution is one of essential cruelty, degradation, and treachery. Congreve's mastery of restoration comedy influenced his contemporary playwrights and made a significant impact on the genre. In addition, Congreve's works resonated with audience members, such as several phrases from Congreve's play The Mourning Bride, his tragedy, have made their way into common parlance, and such phrases include, quote unquote, music has charms to soothe a savage breast. And again, another quote, heaven has no rage like love to turn hatred, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned. Congreve's influence continues to be felt today, and his plays are usually still performed. Now, with regard to The Way of the World specifically, despite the play's lukewarm reception by his contemporaries, The Way of the World has long been considered as Congreve's masterpiece. It deviates not only from comedies of the period, but also from comic drama in general, giving some critics reason to deem the play's intricate plots and counterplots a bit complex and difficult to follow. For example, critic Edmund Goss emphasizes the fact that the plot is one of inaction, remarking that the audience wishes that actors and actresses would be doing something. In no play of Congreve is the human interest in movement and surprise so utterly neglected, Goss says. Every revival of The Way of the World on the stage across generations is made by theatre reviewers who declare that its plot is essentially too complex and incomprehensible. But they also praise the subtlety and sophistication of its dialogue. Even Goss concedes that this play is best written, the most dazzling, the most intellectually accomplished of all English comedies, perhaps of all the comedies of the world. These are his exact words. The way of the world depends on the conventional devices of misunderstanding and deception to impart Congreve's cynical view of love, relationships, and the institution of marriage, common themes in restoration comedy. Still, the drama embraces the ideas of human principles and real love. Like his earlier play, Love for Love, The Way of the World demonstrates Congreve's insistence that the precious thing in life, namely affection in human relations, must be preserved at all costs. As a comedy of manners, The Way of the World has the purpose of exposing social behaviors, passion, and foolishness during Congreve's time to public scrutiny and laughter. Because of its success in doing so, The Way of the World is usually regarded, and rightly so, as a classic example of the comedy of manners. Thank you.